Welcome everybody. We're seeing all this load in. This is my offline world as I just came in hot, logged in. Oh, this might not even work. I've got a lot of cows down there. It's loading in. But anyways, I want to just hop on here for maybe a short one before work because so anybody that's watched a lot of my videos might know that I talk a lot about religion and politics, and there really is a meaning to that. In fact, there's the four pillars. Yeah, I don't have internet. That's what's going on here. So the realm didn't fully load in, and in order to fix all that, it would take more time than I really have because I do need to get to work. So I mean, I don't technically have to work. I got a meeting coming up here soon, and like we kind of make our own hours. And as long as I'm available for general IT, blah blah blah, rationalize however I want. No, I really don't get to the office until about 9 o'clock most days, and so I do check my emails and messages and make sure there's no like emergencies in the morning. So technically, I do start at like 7 or 8 in the morning, but then I also take a break to eat, travel, all that, as it should be. I mean, that's something that's kind of changing is like we used to prioritize so much on like it was all on you, the employee, like it's your responsibility to get there on time. Like the boss never really cared about what your life was. And so all the commuting time, like the cost of, buying the nice clothes to wear, makeup if you're a lady or I mean or if you're a guy, I don't judge, but like all of these other things are called opportunity costs. Like what or all of the hidden costs, the opportunity costs. Like for this opportunity, what are all of the real costs that you're not really thinking of? And part of that is like, so half of my commute is on company time and the other half is on my time. I think that's more fair than the traditional, you get here at this time and then you leave at this time. And it's like, wait, so your workday is actually 9+ hours, depending on how long it takes you to commute. Like when I used to work at the ski resort, I had to drive an hour up there. Oh, let's see. I'm making a bunch of obsidian for this place too, and an enchanting table. I don't even know what I'm doing. So let's just do some farming. Let's talk about some cybersecurity concepts. So this all really does go back to relating to my current career focus, which is tech and cybersecurity, computer science, like all of it. I mean, and I'm still a novice at a lot of it. I graduated back in 2016. I still am studying stuff constantly. Like, well, not constantly. That makes it sound like I'm doing a lot of studying, but I'm still keeping apprised of what's going on and like, loosely following like the cyber attack stuff, CVEs, and I'm doing a lot of social engineering on social media. Now, anybody can say that they're doing that as well, and I think all humans are trying to do that, or all people are trying to do that. And something I want to talk about is psychological priming for violence. So I've been discussing with this one guy who he just won't let it go. And we're talking about Trump's bloodbath comment now. And I get it. He didn't mean bloodbath like, people are going to take to the streets and kill each other if I don't get elected. But that doesn't matter if that's what he meant. In fact, it means something even more obscure. It's supposed to be a term used in the Chinese auto industry. Like it was used in a speech by the Chinese president about how like there's a bloodbath in sales and stuff, but I kind of want to focus on that. So, and I took some marketing and finance classes, and I know, well, marketing is probably the most relevant. Like, how do you convince somebody to buy something? You're manipulating their psychological nature, their psychology, to purchase your product. Now, and it's a very gray area of like what's ethical and what's not ethical. In fact, I had to take a business ethics class because so many of the tactics are kind of Nazi-ish tactics. Like they're psychotic. Like they elicit fear and panic and to convince you to buy out of fear. And then let's talk about terrorism. Terrorism is ruling or governing through fear or violence. Like it is, and even if you don't ever make good on the violence, which Mr. Roger Stone did want to make good on some violence with a recording that came out of him talking about killing a couple of Congress people. Like, and I guess my main point that I'm trying to drive home with this guy, and he's just not having it. He's like, no, you're such a sheep. You're so like that. No, I see the bigger picture here, and I see what Trump's trying to do, and what a lot of people do. And it's not just the Republicans too. Diddy had it with the vote or die campaign, and that was just as stupid. Like, and South Park ripped on him hard for it. Like there's that whole episode on the importance of voting. And then, so a little backstory for those that haven't seen that episode of South Park. It's hilarious, but it's about PETA and how PETA are angry at South Park for having the South Park cows as their mascot. So they're saying, well, that's offensive to animals. You can't have it anymore. And so they have two ridiculous mascots, which in the sake of staying PG, I'm going to say it's two unfavorable mascots that nobody really wants. And it's basically drawing a lot of parallels to politics. Like, nobody wants either of these candidates. They're both a giant sandwich or a feminine product. Like, we'll leave it at that. And and they're just both not what they want for their mascot. They want to just stick with the cows. And so, and then throughout the episode, P. Diddy is doing his vote or die campaign. And this is back before he was, creepy and like a sex offender, which he probably was the whole time anyway. Like, people with power and that don't get checked, that don't have somebody being like, hey man, that's kind of messed up. Like, look at R. Kelly. He was making pee videos with like underage kids and like, not like kids though. I shouldn't say, they were still teenagers and like you got to be careful with how you say that too, because like the people out there like diddling actual kids, yeah, they deserve to get like their leg chopped off or like something severe. Like, that's just completely messed up. Or like babies and stuff. Like, it gets worse the younger you get. Like, I mean, and the punishment should be exponentially worse the younger the victim is, or the person involved actually. I mean, because like victim, I don't know. Yeah, clearly they're victimized, but like, and that's why teenager, it's a little like harder. And there was this law that when I saw that they were trying to put in place, like, you don't have to register as a sex offender if like the age gap was within 4 years. So if you were just like a slightly creepy, because that's what it is at that point. Like if you're like a 22-year-old dating a 15-year-old, like it's creepy. But is it like assault in the sense that like I just feel like there should be a distinction. Like they should still get in trouble, but like, you know, then you got people in a very similar category that are diddling like babies and toddlers, and it's like, okay, wait, that doesn't seem like equal justice. Like, I mean, it's all bad, but you went way worse with the baby and the toddler thing. And, and this guy, like, what, and for desperation too. I'm not justifying it, but explaining the psychology behind it. Like, why would somebody do that? Well, they aren't getting their needs met the proper way with people their own age. So then they turn to younger people where it's like easier. And I'm kind of guilty of this too. My co-parent's younger than me. I mean, she was legal, but like, and I dated, even in high school, when I was a senior, I dated a freshman that was 14, and I was like, this is weird, I don't like this, and I ended up breaking it off, and I apologized to her. I was like, you're beautiful, and you're gonna be great, like, you're a cheerleader, like, you're gorgeous. Not that everyone has to be a cheerleader or anything, I'm not trying to say that, but, like, she had a lot going for her, and she was working really hard to get that going, and I was a football player, and, like, and it just totally launched her popularity, but then it was like, but how creepy is he? And I felt that, and I was like, you know what? And it felt weird too. I was like, you're just starting high school, and I'm about to finish it. Like, all the things that I know, you're about to learn, and I don't want to be there for that journey for you. You deserve to be with someone that is also going through that experience with you. And and it's that's why I'm all in favor of legalizing adult sex work and prostitution. Like, I mean, I'm not calling it prostitution because it's got such a dirty. It's like marijuana and cannabis. Like, there's so much baggage tied to marijuana. Like, and it's not even English. So like anybody who's even slightly racist or slightly biased against Spanish speakers is like, oh, it's a dirty plant. It's a drug. It's like evil and blah blah blah. It's like, no, it's a plant. It makes you giggle for a little while, and then it makes you all happy and calm. Maybe eat, maybe take a nap. Like, you're certainly not out driving drunk, slamming into people and like starting fights and trying to kill each other. Like, it's quite the opposite, actually. And I think that's why it's been demonized for so long. It's because it's the anti-psychological priming. And that's why I wanted to make this video. So psychological priming with the intent of violence. That's what this is. Making an election into a war, doing stupid things like calling it a war room, like, oh, it's our war room. It's, we gotta win this war, this fight, and all this, and basically all the crap that Trump does. Ugh. And and he doesn't do it all at once. So that's why the people that watch his whole speeches and listen, they're like, no, that's not what he's doing. But at the back of their mind, they're angry at brown people because there's an immigrant invasion and they're going to come get you and they're going to kill you and like, and all this. And it's like, we wonder why heart attacks and heart problems are the #1 killer in America. But we're priming our people every election, every single election. It's vote or die, vote or die. Your life is at risk. Like, and that's why I tell people, like, even if Trump gets elected, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it might be the end of the world if World War III pops off, but at the same time, if Putin has to step down, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of his world. But isn't he like, he was the richest person in the world for a while. Like, he had billions of dollars before any of the, our rich people got it. So maybe it's time for you to fade silently tonight and leave a good legacy and, step down. He's been president for what, 4 or 5 decades? Like, you know, 80s, I think. So 80s, 90s, early 2010s. We're at, yeah, about 4 decades, I think, he's been in power. And it's like, chill, dude. You can teach somebody else to do it. Let somebody else have it for a while. It's greedy. It's lazy. It's like, there's so many things wrong with it. But I digress. That's Russia. And that's the other thing, too, is respect. So I say that out of respect and understanding for people. And it's got to be stressful for him, too. And maybe that's part of why he doesn't want to step down is because he's worked so hard and he's done. And I've heard they've got some great things over there, like free rent and stuff, or like, the government provides your housing. You don't have to worry about that or struggle like that. Like, and I'd be really interested to go to Russia and just kind of see how the other half live because I don't know. I mean, and I think I'd be pleasantly surprised to be like, oh, it's not as bad as like people make it out to be. But it's this pursuit of greed and power that allows for this, I call it psychocapitalism. That's what we need to start calling it because it is psychotic. It's a psychotic deficiency or abnormality to want to encourage violence for the sake of greed and profit. Like, there's a lot that should be wrong with that. It's unethical. And the using the word bloodbath in a speech, I don't care if they say it on the stock floor. Like, to people that aren't involved in Chinese auto industries, which is pretty much everybody, they're not going to know that President Xi said bloodbath in his speech and like, and even then, why is he saying it? Maybe he needs to calm down too. Like, it's not life or death. You make it life or death by putting so much stress and importance on it, and people die of stress. Like, that's why here in Colorado, we got to figure it out. We legalize weed, we legalize boomers, because guess what? Those are the anti-war. They're the hippie stuff. Like, you wonder why hippies love that stuff? It's because it makes you peaceful and happy and easier to live with. Like, and then for decades, they demonized it ever since Nixon and the war on drugs. Like, it's just silly. It's childish. And I told this guy that. It's childish, it's cowardly, and it's un-American. And it's just, like, downright stupid. Like, and he's really defended it. I even brought up, like, the rule of thumb. And so Boondock Saints is one of my favorite movies because, I used to drink a lot and I get really proud of my Irish pride and be like, yeah, I'm Irish. I'm just like those guys. Like, not really, but, but I struggled kind of like them, not nearly as bad. Like, grew up, I wouldn't say struggled. I'd say faced some adversity, which, it's a spit in the bucket or a drop in the bucket compared to the adversity felt from systematic racism, which still is alive today. Like, and he was even trying to defend, or no, this was another guy. So I'm debating or discussing with like 3 or 4 people at any given time, all while trying to explain this to Chinese people that I'm talking to in Chinese. Like, I use Google Translate, so I'll send them messages all in Chinese, and it comes out mostly okay. And they do the same. Like, they are able to translate into, although I think the one Chinese guy, like, he just keeps it in Chinese because it's easier, and that's fine. But, like, just being able to communicate, and we need some more room. Like, this is getting ridiculous. These poor cows. Oh, we need some enchanting. That's what we need. All right, so let's try to get this. Yeah, they're going to fill in the gaps because they're just completely full. They're, like, overcrowding each other. Yeah, they're letting me know. But anyways, so psychologically priming for violence, like, or just like psycho-capitalism. And basically I've been saying it for a while that capitalism needs caps. We need to be able to reach a point, be like, you know what, enough's enough. Like, you can't have a ratio of like 300 to 1 of the CEO pay to the pay of your lowest employee. Like, we're the only country that has such a runaway ratio of that. Where the people at the top just make millions, if not billions, and their average worker is struggling to even survive. Like, and then they blame the economy, or like, and they try to hide the taxing changes and all that. Meanwhile, the Democrats are like, tax the rich. Anyone making 400,000 or more, 400,000 or more, I don't care. If you hit 400,000, guess what? You should be taxed 50%. Like, you don't need 400,000. That should just drop right to 200,000 at that point. Like, and then because this country allowed you to get there, you owe part of that. Same with like the idea of like giving 10%, giving 10% back to the land, back to God or whoever, the creator or whoever you want to worship. Like, that's an idea in all religions, like, or well, most, I think. I know it's in Islam, like one of the pillars. In fact, let's go back over here. That's why I built these things. So the pillars of Islam, I believe they're no, this one. Yeah, Hajj, Shahada, so a pilgrimage to Mecca. So you got to prove your dedication to the Creator by going to their holy land, which is the Hajj. Or no, sorry, Mecca. That's a city or a place in Saudi Arabia. And I have some really close friends. I mean, one, I need to mend fences because I totally bailed on his brother. I'll explain that real quick. So I have a really close friend, basically brother. I call him Uncle Abdul. I mean, Uncle Abdul. It's like saying my name's Alex. Like there's a million Alexes, but I tell my kids that's Uncle Abdul. You know, because he is family. Well, he tried to send his brother for 2 months, and I thought I had a whole grip of Saudis to help me with it. And I realized, no, it was just me. And I was like, oh, and then I didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because the Saudi style is a lot like, hillbilly style, not in an offensive way, but like, I mean, I grew up hillbilly. Like, you're given an inch, you take a mile. So like the instant I would have let him come over, it'd been like, no, Abdul said I could just stay here. And then now it's my problem. And I couldn't do that. Was not in a position to do that. Because I got kids, I have a co-parent, and I have legal issues too. Like, I mean, and that was the other thing I realized after the fact, and I tried to explain to him, I was like, I can't really have a house guest because my co-parent would flip, and she could take me to court, and I could lose my kids. Like, there's more at play, and I think he got it, but he also went and visited me in jail too when we were living, because I ended up in jail a couple of times. So, one time when he was here, but like, I mean, like I've been there a few times, so. Oh, this one didn't grow as a 4x4. Anyways, back to this though. That's what we were talking about. Let me chop this tree down because we need the 4x4s. They get a good amount of wood. That almost sounded sus. All right. Anyways, so they're very simple. But where is the one? Salah, pray 5 times. And I call it rubber ducking because like taking time to reflect and think or talk out something, like we use it in computer science all the time. Like when you're writing some computer code, you explain your code to a rubber duck on your desk. And that's the point. You're just talking to no one. Or same with praying. Like I think the big point of praying is so you actually think through what you're doing and be like, oh, maybe I am being a prick about this. And that's why, and praying 5 times a day. That's good. I think everybody should meditate, reflect, take a moment of silence, maybe not 5 times a day, but enough. But they're really drilling it down, and then zakat, that pay it forward. That's what I was looking for. Donate 1% of your wealth to charity. Like if you're doing good and you've made it, then help the other people that aren't quite there yet. Now, and there is a difference between charity and then laziness. Like, I mean, and it's a fine line where people might get too accustomed to charity and be like, oh, well, this is normal. Oh, that's unpleasant. I don't want to struggle for things. Whereas a lot of people, it's not their choice. It's like, oh, and then especially putting things in perspective. Like, even my poorest of days are better than people right now in Gaza. Gaza or not Ghana, Gaza. Like they're getting bombarded and chased out and like Palestine, Israel and like all this stuff and people are killing and fighting and like it's really bad. My inconvenience, if I had to take a little longer on the highway to get to somewhere I need to go, that's my hardships right now and I'm happy for that and I want that for everybody. I want those issues, first world problems to be the only problems that these people are facing. And everybody wants that. It's nothing unique. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. However, the ways that we try to do it are vastly different. Well, although actually, as I say that, not really, because Diddy's Vote or Die campaign was right up there with psycho-capitalism. Like, you gotta vote or you're gonna die. Like, vote or die. And South Park really ripped into him, like, for doing it. They thought it was the dumbest thing ever. Like, just like, look at Diddy being a total clown, like, rolling around, because he's a gangbanger, he's all that, but, like, not much gangbanging at the top, is there? I mean, yeah, Biggie got shot and Tupac got shot, but where's Diddy at all this time? I remember this video, and this is before all the sex stuff came out, but like he did that Bad Boys for Life video, and it's him in a nice, quiet, gated community with his nice, fluffy white robe. Like he made it. And how many of the Crips and Bloods are still like, in and out of jail, rehab, and like dying from overdoses and like living in the dirt and he's off there like, nah. If that was ever me, and I'm not saying I'm like some like Jesus or anything, but I've just seen enough and struggled enough to where I'd be like, you know what? I don't, and I do put my money where my mouth is. I've donated to several things, not a lot because I don't have a lot, but like a certain percentage for sure. And it's only getting more and more. Like now, I mean, I've got kids, so like that's mainly what I'm donating for. But that's not just charity. That's your family responsibility as a parent and mine, So it doesn't really count as much, but I am paying it forward. and helping the future generation do everything that, I wanted to do, or like fix the problems that I wanted to fix. Just like my dad before me, he would constantly talk about what's wrong with the world and how do we fix it. He went nuts trying to figure out how to fix it. And he didn't have these tools like I do. Like he couldn't just sit down and be like, because he made a lot of sense. It's one thing a lot of people said about my dad was like, when he would sit and talk, you'd want to listen because he was usually saying something that was either really important, really funny, maybe both, but worth listening to. It wasn't just blowing a lot of hot air. And the sad state of things, like the way our elections go, is that's all it is. It's just blowing bunch of hot air and trying to scare people and use psychocapitalism to try to scare them into voting or thinking one way. And then they get like, oh no, that's not what I meant when bad things happen. That's why the January 6th thing is so big. Even though it was exaggerated, it wasn't as bad as a lot of the people on the left make it out to sound, but it wasn't good either. Like, I mean, if I trespassed even in just the Denver Capitol, if they told me to leave and I didn't, I'd be in jail for possibly a year or two. Like, these people act so privileged and stuck up. It's like, but no, like it was a movement, it was a thing, and like, oh, but at least it wasn't as bad as BLM. It's like, no, dummy, you broke into the Capitol, you idiot. Like, oh, well, you don't think they're gonna be a little angry about that? Like, it's so stupid. Like, oh. And Trump incited it. He completely 100% incited it. And it's like that thing. It's like, people only pay attention to certain things. And it doesn't matter that he said, we got to do it peacefully. We're the party of law and order. And that was not law and order at all. That was terrible. Like, and it was because of this psychological priming that these politicians do to make it look like a war room, or this is war, like we gotta fight for our country. And there's this really cool, and I'm actually getting close, I gotta get going, but there's this really cool montage of Marjorie Taylor Greene and like her part of the hearing for January 6th. And they were talking about, they had video clips of her on social media saying, you gotta fight, you gotta go inside, the Capitol, like right there. Okay, you're telling them to break the law, like, and something like this is going to be won with blood. Like, that is trying to incite violence. Like, and you are a politician that is leading these people. And then Boebert freaking leading like guided tours of the Capitol to a bunch of these same people that broke in, the very next week or whatever it was. And like, giving guided tours of the Capitol, like helping them break the law. That's why everybody's so upset about all this, is like, because the politicians are doing it. They're supposed to be, in charge and telling their fan base and their voter base to do things the right way. But they're encouraging them to break the law. Like, that's where it's illegal. Like, you can't do that. With great power comes great responsibility. And if you're going to sit there and get like 200,000 a year just to sit around and then argue with each other, then you're going to have some consequences when you incite violence and damages. Like, but anyways, I wanted to jump on and just have a brief little one today to talk about psychological priming, because and both sides do it. Elections are blown out of proportion, and we need to be extra careful of that in this country, because heart attacks are the #1 killer. I mean, partly from poor eating habits and eating too much red meat and stuff like that, not enough exercise, but mainly because of all the stress and anxiety. Like, we've got so much money flowing around, so many rich people that can win it all or lose it all in a matter of minutes. Like, stock markets and Wolf of Wall Street type situations. Like, and so we don't need to have a war room for an election. We don't need to have a bloodbath discussed when we're talking about the economy. Like, you could just say in the red or the black. Like, I took accounting. That's what you talk about if the budget's out of whack. Like, if the budget's coming in low, you're in the red. Like, you need to address that. That's it. That's your heightened sense of extreme, attention. Not a bloodbath. Like, and that's what I'm trying to tell this guy. And he's just clinging to it. He's like, well, that's not what he meant. Well, that's what it came off as. So it doesn't matter. He's responsible for how people interpret that. Like, it's a poor choice of words, and he needs to stop saying it. And never mind, he calls Kamala Harris Comrade Kamala, and like the country's being destroyed. Even in the presidential debate, he was talking about how this is war. Like, basically, like, the country is being destroyed. These communists are just, and then he's doing exactly what Hitler did, or very close, by labeling an entire group of people he doesn't like and his political opponents, and everybody that says anything against him is now a communist. Everyone I don't like is a communist. And then his other parts of his speech, on day one, we're going to root out all the communists. They will be punished. They will be brought to justice. We're going to get them. And like all of these things that are really vague and up to interpretation that could mean, hey, we're going to go kill a bunch of political rivals. And even if they didn't intend it, just like how Trump saw it, got away from him, somebody's going to take that and be like, oh, he's telling me to go shoot somebody. Like, And that's why psychological priming is so dangerous, is because, like, these words mean something. It's not, oh, well, just get over it, buttercup, or suck it up. That's that toxic masculinity that allows for psychological priming of a violent nature, because then people that speak out against it are wusses, or they're like feminine, or they're, like, how dare you, you wuss, or whatever. It's like, nah. Or snowflake. Like, how do you get offended by that? I get offended by it because those are fighting words, and he uses it every single speech, and so then I want to fight after hearing it. Like, okay, one last thing before, and then I'll go. But like, I sat there and I listened to Fox News when I was hanging out with my buddy, and I got so mad at Democrats, stupid liberals. Like, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm one of those people. I got so mad at myself for stupid things, and then I had to walk through my thinking. Like, why am I mad about this? Oh, well, that doesn't make sense. It's all blown out of proportion, or, poor phrasing, or whatever. And then if you look at the big macro picture, then it's like, oh, okay, that wasn't as big of a deal. And it happens on both sides, like the good people on both sides thing. That was taken out of context and that was misunderstood. And I get it now what Trump was saying during that speech, and Democrats took it and ran with it because we treat elections like a war, and it's so stupid. So anyways, I hope you have a great day. Sorry that was kind of more of a downer episode, but I wanted to document another area of things that I'm going to investigate or not investigate, work towards, because I'm still like learning and trying to be a better blue hat, or blue teaming white hat, to protect people from ourselves and our own stupidity, or even our own misunderstandings and shortcomings. Just trying to be better people overall, and we don't need it. Like, we don't need all that stress. So have a great day, everybody. I will see you in the next one.